I'm Tobias from Australia, and welcome to Thorin's YouTube channel. It's a choke-free zone.
Creating space is terminology in Counter-Strike for a player entering an area and taking it over so that you know if you're a follow-up player, you cannot be attacked from that particular angle. You've got certain areas covered and you can look at other areas, or someone behind, perhaps a lurker covering an outskirt of a map, or watching a flank, someone who watches behind. So there can be no backstab, no push behind, and you're not pressured in terms of a slow push forwards to set up. So essentially, it's something that one player does that's somewhat invisible because it allows another player to perform elsewhere, but there isn't an obvious and tangible way to highlight this. We have to just use this terminology and model where the players are on the map and why they might be there. Now, one of my problems with that terminology is it's all right, but I already see it applied way too vaguely. In a lot of cases, sometimes not even appropriately, and it's not actually that great as terminology. Like, the big problem with creating space is it even sounds like an oxymoron. How do you create space? Like, you don't, you take something away, and the lack of something is what the space is, right? In fact, you're describing and making the thing what is not a thing. It's precisely the lack of a thing, an area where there isn't anything going to happen, isn't anything, it's safe in that regard. Like, making it safe would actually be better terminology. So, how do you create an area of nothing? Well, that's the whole point, isn't it? When you say creating space, it doesn't visually in the imagination give you a specific mental image. So because I've been getting more into the NFL over the years, American football, there's a concept that they have on offense there, where when you have a pass player quarterback, someone who likes to throw the ball, the offensive lineman block the defenders who are rushing in on the quarterback to try and sack him, take him down, stop him throwing. And by blocking them, the longer they can block him and in a specific way, it creates an area from which he can throw. Now, in this area, for the time that they're blocking and creating a pocket for him, this pocket, this air pocket, as it were, where nothing's going to happen and he's just the only one there, he doesn't have to look at those defenders. He can look down the field, he can evaluate his options, and then he can find the right person, make his throw, and hopefully that's before anyone gets to him. If you do so, he had a pocket from which to operate, and it works. Now, in Counter-Strike, if you use that term instead for what was creating space before, you say creating a pocket, already it's more effective. It conjures up an area, an image of a specific area enclosing a player who will then go to work from that safety while it exists. Instead of space, this concept of not something but also like free, you're actually describing the boundary that you artificially create, and there's a time component. Just as with the defenders rushing towards you, there's a time component for how long you could have map control in an area, before flanks happen, before people push in, before they rotate off, before other angles are taken and you're no longer safe. I also think a cool angle is creating space. That's a very vague term that gets applied to a lot of players that I'm not really sure they're doing that. The idea of creating a pocket is more specific as to which and what you're doing. So I think it will actually also give more credit to the entry guys who take over an area and then let you come in safely. The lurkers who keep the flanks back and make sure no one can shoot you from some weird off angle at some weird place you didn't check. So people will get the basic concepts of those roles now, but if you understand more this terminology, what they're doing is essentially something which allows a different player a platform from which to shine. It's going to make more sense. Now, you'll notice I have put a heavy emphasis on this concept when it was creating space more with a player like coldzera within the SKM IBR system, which I felt was designed around him that way. Mirage T-Side's a classic example. But if you want a more recent example, Elige from Team Liquid on Inferno on the T side is a great example of a player where when you create space for him with Stewie2K, Twists or someone, and then he's coming in second or he's coming in an area where he has the info on where the guys are, because he's a guy who plays at his own pace like coldzera, has his own specific skill set and wants to be comfortable, from that pocket, he's a master. He will take over the game. He will be the best player in the service, as coldzera could. If you don't do any of that, this is why I want to actually see when they throw coldzera now into phase in more games, he's not going to have that pocket to the same degree. He can still frag, he can still be a very good player, but I don't think he'll have the same consistency of performance because he doesn't have that structure around him. So the reason I stress this and make this short little video is because the terminology we use does matter, not only for how it creates an image in our mind, but as it spreads throughout the community and becomes viral, it levels up the basic paradigm or model of how people see Counter-Strike, of the average fan thinking about Counter-Strike. So terms like trade frag, retake, Anchor. These all helped level up the casual player way more than anyone's realised now, and especially the low-level esports fan. When they just thought it was 5 players in the server just fragging and shooting the crosshair, they didn't understand basic tactical concepts. They had no strategical grasp, really. They just were fans of players and the action. So I think in this particular case, it's a useful term if we can start using it. I hope the other analysts and casters can start using it a little bit more. And if we can get it out in the scene, there's another brick that I think does more to create a fundamental understanding than this nebulous creating space angle. This video was kindly supported by Alexander Rao, Blunt Smoking Anus Destroyer, Dane Cuskley, Dean Tanglis, Chi Mao, JDubs, Mohammed, Alabdul, Razzaq, NateDOhDoubleG, Patrick Ribeiro, Tobias Bernasconi, Who the Fuck is Viathan, and special thanks always goes out to Jerky's Minion. Would you like to suggest a topic or a guest for my content? Would you like to ask me a question for my monthly video AMA? Do you want teasers for upcoming content that I've got? Do you want to take part in a discussion with me? Well, if you would like any of these perks or to support my work, put your money where your mouth is and join the Scrilluminati today at the Patreon link in the description box below.